Welcome to my brand new podcast. You're listening to The Things Nobody Tells You About with Marthy Cherubin. This podcast is about the unspoken things in pregnancy, labor, and postnatal that nobody tells prospective mothers, parents, and or childbearing age women about. In today's episode, we are going to talk about my labor story. After the baby had turned, the C-section was off the table. So from then on, everything went smoothly until my due date came around and I didn't go into labor. So the doctor said that they'll give me 2 weeks before they are going to induce my labor. Labor is the process through which a woman gives birth to a baby. It's the physical effort and periodic uterine contractions to childbirth. Basically, it's the tightening and the shortening of the uterine muscles. And that's what they call contractions. And contractions accomplish two things. They cause the cervix to thin and dilate. Dilate means to open. And they help the baby descend into the birth canal. So that's the purpose of those painful labor contractions that women have during childbirth. Labor is induced when your doctor gives you medication or uses other methods to make labor start. Your labor may be induced if your health or the health of your baby is at risk, or if you're 2 weeks past your due date. Basically, my womb was so comfortable and welcoming that my baby boy was like, nah, I ain't coming out. You're gonna have to come and get me. About 2 weeks later, I checked myself into the hospital around 9:30 p.m. My husband also checked in with me. My OBGYN had told me to come overnight so they could start inducing my labor so that I will be ready to give birth by the morning. 1 hour later, they gave me a very small dose of Pitocin. They gave it to me in a pill form. They said it's about maybe 15 to 25% of the pill. They wanted to see how my body is going to react to it. I am also supposed to get the Pitocin about 2 more times throughout the night. Pitocin is a synthetic form of oxytocin used to induce labor. Oxytocin is a powerful hormone that acts as a neurotransmitter in the brain. It plays an important role in reproduction, initiating contractions before birth, as well as milk release. 2 to 3 hours after I took the Pitocin, my husband told me that he's going to the bathroom. And because the nurses were monitoring my urine levels and chemical content, he couldn't go to the bathroom in the room. So he had to go outside to use the public bathroom on the maternity floor. In order for him to get to the bathroom, he has to go down the hall, past the nurse's station, then the bathroom is a couple of doors down. So as he reached the nurse's station, he noticed about half a dozen nurses and doctors running down the hall. Then he thought to himself, wow, something pretty bad must be happening. I hope this person's okay. Then he continued going about his business and went to the bathroom. He thought nothing of it really, because when he left the room, I was awake and everything was fine. So he had no reason to be worried. By the time my husband came back to the room from the bathroom, chaos has ensued and everything was upside down. Literally. When he opened the door to the room, I was surrounded by over half a dozen nurses and doctors. I had an oxygen mask on. I was laying upside down on the hospital bed while the overnight OBGYN was pushing my stomach, more like giving my belly CPR. And there were people talking, machine beeping, and my husband had no idea what was going on. Yet, nobody could tell him anything because I couldn't talk. I had an oxygen mask on. I was laying upside down on the bed, and the nurses and doctors were all preoccupied trying to basically save my baby. The baby's heart rate had dropped so low that they were concerned I would lose the baby. Now, I didn't know any of that while it was happening. All they told me was the baby's heart rate went down and they're trying to get it back up. So when my husband walked in the room, and since I couldn't talk, I just put my right arm up and gave him a thumbs up as a way to tell him that I was okay, even though I didn't know if I was okay. But I wanted to reassure him a little bit. Interestingly enough, throughout this whole thing, I remained very calm. I think that one of the reasons why I remained so calm throughout the whole ordeal was because I was having an out-of-body experience. Because I could see myself looking at myself from above the hospital bed while I had the mask on. The overnight OBGYN was basically trying to give my baby CPR through my belly. And my husband was standing by the door on the brink of tears because it looked like he was either about to lose his wife, his son, or both of them. It was really a pretty traumatizing experience for the both of us. After what felt like forever, the OBGYN told us what happened. She said that the baby must have had some kind of negative reaction to the Pitocin. Therefore, they are going to stop giving it to me throughout the night, and they are also going to forego the epidural because they don't want the same thing to happen again. An epidural is an anesthetic medication used especially in childbirth to produce loss of sensation below your waist. Basically, an epidural is very useful during labor because you don't feel as much pain while you're having contractions. Since the baby seems to be having a negative reaction to the drug, as a result, the doctor said that I am going to have to try to have the baby naturally, which basically is what I wanted to do in the first place, because it was part of my birth plan to have a natural birth. So I was very happy about that. They also told me that they are going to continue to monitor the baby's heart rate throughout the night to make sure that everything is okay. Although the baby's heart rate had stabilized throughout the night, my husband and we barely slept. We remained very vigilant and alert, hoping and praying that nothing else happens for the rest of the night. Around 7 a.m. in the morning, my OBGYN came to check in on my progress. He noticed that I wasn't having any contractions and my cervix wasn't dilated, which means my cervix wasn't open. It is important for my cervix to dilate or open as I go through my labor. Without that, the baby will not be able to go through the birth canal. During labor, the cervix opens to accommodate the passage of the baby's head through the birth canal, which is around 10 centimeters dilated for most term babies. Term babies are babies born between 39 weeks and 40 weeks. If your cervix is dilated with regular painful contractions, you are in active labor and getting closer to delivering your baby. We are going to stop here for today, folks, but please come back next week for the end of my labor story. And remember to leave a review of this episode on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to this podcast. You can also leave a comment about your pregnancy stories, because you might even hear your review and or your stories on the air. So please join us.